My mom told me not to talk to strangers on the internet, but I'm glad I didn't listen. We are the Certified Nunas, your sisters in the love of Asian entertainment.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
I'm Natalia.
And I'm Sky.
And as 2022 draws to a close, we decided, you know what we need for this upcoming new year, but starting this year, is a new segment, a new show concept for episodes that we can use as like a cornerstone of Nuna's content going forward. And so we put our little minds together. The three brain cells, they bounced off each other for a little while.
And for the record, Jessie is just still on hiatus.
Yeah, she's still on hiatus. She's still on hiatus. So the current three brain cells, soon it'll be four brain cells, but until then, the three brain cells were bouncing together. And we've come up with a hot new idea for everyone out there listening. Okay. We brought you the genre jar, but we thought we can do more. We can bring something a little more open-ended and evolvable. And with that, we bring you our new concept, our new segment, Drama Gems. This is a working title that we came up with 30 seconds before recording, because we had come up with the idea and not come up with a snazzy title for it yet. So we're going to be calling it Drama Gems. So basically, it'll just be, for now, but this may evolve over time, as many of our things do, because that's how life works, where we will bring back dramas that we really loved, and perhaps some people who listen to us may not have watched. And you're out there, you're thinking to yourself, oh, I really wish I had a good drama. Like, I really wish there was a drama that really hit the spot. And we want to bring you dramas that hit our spot, the heart spot that we enjoyed. And so we're going to start it off with end of the year topicalness by doing what drama from 2022 do we want to say, hey, if you haven't watched it, maybe give her a chance. Any comments before we begin, ladies?
So yeah, this is a way, if you're familiar with our genre jar stuff, that's usually us following themes. This is kind of just a way that we can talk about essentially dramas that we haven't done really focused episodes on yet, but we think are worth mentioning, and when we think that people might, it's a way for us to recommend dramas and kind of talk about them a little bit more without saying it has to be, this main focus one drama episode thing. So it's a way for us to revisit content essentially and discuss it with you guys, and maybe give you some really good recommendations, because we know that people are always looking for a good recommendation.
Mm-hmm. And we know you guys love to listen to us, or what we're watching episodes. And we thought maybe sometimes you guys are thinking, I wonder how that ended. I wondered if they still liked it, 3 months later after they talked about it or whatever. And so this is a chance for us to
revisit. We're blasting from the past with some drama gems for y'all's ear holes that maybe you can watch with your eye holes at some point. So that's what we're doing. And I believe through random selection, I will be going first. But the question is, what drama did Natalia, when she sat down and thought what all the dramas she watched in 2022 that weren't like the obvious ones, okay, that weren't like the huge big ones that I've already talked about ad nauseum, and I settled on a Taiwanese drama that is available on Viki and iQIYI, and it's called DNA Says Love You. So this drama, I watched it on a train on one of my many train trips, and I watched it this summer, but it originally came out in March of 2022, and I hadn't really heard about it. And then I got an iQIYI membership in like June. It became, as if you're a listener to the show, I became kind of obsessed with the iQIYI platform, and was like, what should I download for this 18-hour train ride? And so I downloaded DNA Says Love You, because I love a good Taiwanese show. I love a good queer drama. And this is a queer Taiwanese drama that follows a YouTuber named Li Jian, whose YouTube channel ain't really going anywhere. And he also works at a little cafe with his like best friend, this lady best friend, named Yuhi. And so he has this YouTube channel with his other friend, and it's going really nowhere, where they try to like go to like haunted places and make like, you know, adventure, like exploration of like abandoned haunted places around. And no one really gives a shit. Meanwhile, this man shows up at the cafe and is like, I'm actually a big fan of your YouTube channel, and I would like to like be involved. I'd like to help you. Like I know some stuff about like filmmaking and photography. And so he starts like tagging along with all of them. And his name is Amber, and he's just like tagging along with all of them, being good, just, you know, having a good time with him and his buddy. Meanwhile, you find out that there's the main character, Li Jian, has been looking for his best friend from childhood, who used to hang out with him and his other little friend, for years. And she disappeared, and he's never been able to find her ever since they were like 9 years old, because she went overseas and was only supposed to be for like a month, but then she never came back. And meanwhile, this man, Amber, has a lot of strange similarities with his friend that went missing when, you know, didn't go missing, but disappeared from his life. And it sort of like evolves from there as they try to locate this like haunted spot that everyone swears exists, but no one can find. So they're like on this investigation trying to find this place called Gilai Abbey, which has like this tragic love story about like lovers separated, you know. And I can't describe to you how moving this show is. The more that like you find out about, you know, the lives of these people and the friendships that they had, and just, it's, Taiwanese dramas are sometimes really good at doing just very heartfelt, not fast-paced things that are just, they're just beautiful, moving stories that take place in a very sort of static, soft place. So it's not like a slow burn or anything, but it doesn't have heightened action or, you know, over the top emotions, but it still manages to sort of capture this like internal emotions in a way that really make you feel lots of things. Do you know what I mean? It's not like a particularly long show. It's only 12 episodes, and the acting is out of this world incredible. And it's just absolutely a beautiful show.
And what was the name of it again?
It's called DNA Says Love You.
Okay.
And the DNA thing does come back because it has like, you know, questions about like gender and are you your DNA, or are you what you make of yourself afterwards. It has a very moving queer love stories in it, and it's just very nice. It's a very nice show, and I'm sure lots of people watched it, but I don't personally know anyone who's told me they watched it. And I loved it so much. Just, I don't even know like what to say about it. Like I always come into this sort of problem when I'm talking about like really excellent shows and pieces of media that I really like, because I feel like I don't have like the language to articulate what makes something special a lot of the times. Because like I can, you know, go on about like, oh, the acting was great and like, oh, it was so well written and like it was moving, but I can't actually articulate exactly how moving something is, because I'm not a particularly emotional person. Like I don't cry during dramas or movies, except for Move to Heaven, let's be real. Because like, and surprisingly, the opening sequence of the 2009 Star Trek remake, I shed a little tear, and I can't tell you why, because like I don't normally, but I was just like, why is this so sad? But anyway,
honestly, I still cry. I've watched that movie like 20 times, and every time that opening sequence,
it's a pretty heartrending opening sequence.
It's good,
but there's like, as you know, find out, like I don't know how much to say about this, because I think it's pretty, like, it's fairly obvious who Amber is. Like I don't think that's like, as you're watching this, you're like, oh, I understand what happened here. And it's, you know, and so it just sort of has this character, like the main character, Li Jian, who has had like a hole in his heart his entire life because he never found out what happened to his friend who just disappeared. And then, you know, this man comes back and it feels like there's, you know, that something's filling this hole in his heart. But in his mind, he says, well, it can't be. I know that this seems very similar, but this is a man, so obviously this is not who I, and it's, spoiler alert, it is the friend. So here's the big spoiler, is that they had gender reassignment surgery because they were intersex. And it's so nice. It's just such a nice story. And it even has like a side couple that's just this, you know, openly gay couple, like dealing with, you know, just regular life problems that a lot of couples deal with. Like one wants to go to grad school, but it's in England, and, you know, is struggling to articulate this to his like long-term partner, that like, what are we gonna do, you know? And it's all of these just very like common things happening in a very heartfelt way, and it feels very genuine, and the writing feels extremely realistic and not at all like, it's not none of this is done for like laughs or sensationalism. Like they're not making, you know, Amber some sort of you know, sideshow attraction. It's just a person living their life, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful drama, and I watched it on the train and I was like, oh, this is such a beautiful
and you wanted to
drama.
turn
like,
to the people around you and talk about it.
Be like, it is. And I'd be like, how, like, this is the sort of drama that needs to be made, because we talk a lot about, like, you know, like there's, I hate the term BL drama. I really do, because I feel like a lot of the times by calling it, you're devaluing queer storytelling in a lot of ways, because you're like, oh, it's just a BL, which means it's not realistic in any way. There's no, like, this is a fantasy. Where, so if you call something like this a BL drama, just because the two main characters are identify as male and are in love, then you're really sort of saying that this story, which is a story that I'm sure, well, obviously not the looking for the, you know, mystical temple that may or may not exist, like that's just the, you know, him being a YouTuber, like, you know, making videos. But like, so you're saying that like stories between, you know, having to tell your friend from childhood that you have a different identity than they think you do, you know, having to come out about things, you know, that you think that this isn't a real, this is a fantasy, but it's not. Like this is a story that at its core, like you can relate to, and is a realistic in characterization of these people.
And that in particular, like that type of that specific type of representation of a trans story is very important. And so you don't want to devalue the fact that, oh, it's all because it's fictional, it doesn't matter, or because it's a stylized like a BL, that cheapens it or what. It's like, no, this, especially it sounds like the type of the genre and the type of show that it was actually a very meaningful, touching, like can make a difference in people's lives just by watching that, by either seeing the representation or being seen on the screen themselves. Like, so you don't want people to think that it's just, kind of back to like the whole queer baiting versus people actually being queer people and living their lives. Like,
and also if a show if a show has queer characters being queer, it's not queer baiting. You just delivered the queer that you marketed. So
exactly. But that's the thing about like the BL label that you're saying, essentially, like, because there are some shows that kind of squarely within that quote unquote BL for the sake of being, I only love you because you're you. I don't really love boys. Like that whole shenanigans and stuff.
It's like, what's the likelihood? Well, I'm going to say this has been changing recently, so kudos to GMMTV for finally getting their act together. But every gay couple can't only like one man, can't only be attracted to a single man, the two of them. The statistics don't bear out. Okay? Like, it just, but what's sort of nice about this is that, like, the main character, he never really thinks about his relationships in terms of gender either. Like, he likes Amber because Amber is a good person, even before he knows that Amber was his best friend in childhood. Like, he's a good person, and that's why he starts liking him. And it's that sort of, so it's not that he's like, oh, I never liked any man but you. It's just like, you get the impression he never really liked anyone. Like, he just was working on other things and not putting any value towards his romantic pursuits for, until, one made itself needed in his life, as it were. And it's beautifully filmed. Matthew and I used to joke, there's a show called Bromance. It's a Taiwanese show. And it would have these like sweeping, so good. It's so funny. Another gym. But it would have these, like, the opening credits would have these sweeping shots of like the Taiwanese countryside and like the beachside, and Matthew would always be like, welcome to beautiful Taiwan. Come visit beautiful Taiwan. It's so beautiful here. And this show kind of has that, but not in as obvious of a way, because it is gorgeous. Like, they go into like the jungle and they're like going around and like these cityscapes and stuff.
It's almost like you want to go look at like the credits at the end and be like, did the tourism agency fund this?
Like, all right, Taiwan, what tourism agency? And so there's certain shows also that you can tell when a show has a ideological purpose for existing. And that's not always a bad thing. Like, for example, there is an ideological purpose for this show to exist in this day and age. And the ideological purpose for this show to exist and be made is because while Taiwan is the only place in Asia that has legalized same-sex marriage as of right now, and has, pretty good protections, the trans and intersex and gender fluid community is always somewhat left behind in the terms of, like, so a show like this has a purpose in culture to make a viewer who may be unfamiliar with trans people or intersex people or gender fluid people or gay couples or anything, to say, hey, look, these struggles that these people are going through and these situations that these people are going, that they are in, is not actually so different from your struggles. And so by, showing this as sort of a very humanized, touching way, that no one in it is, a freak or a sideshow or a embarrassment. Like, they're just people who have people who love them.
They're not made into a stereotype.
Yeah, yeah, they're not, it's they're just people existing. It helps people who are just unfamiliar with the community gain a sort of acceptance and sympathy and love of people like this that otherwise may not have existed. So I not only do I love this show, I appreciate that this show was made. If that makes any sense. Because while I may not personally understand what it is like to be trans or intersex or gender fluid, I can appreciate and be understanding towards those who that is the reality of their life. And shows like this really help people. Like, I don't think it was particularly difficult for me as a person to like come to this conclusion, but for other people it might be more difficult. And I don't think it's up to individual trans people to make people accept them. Like, that's too much to put on one person.
Yeah.
But any little thing that can help, like shows like this, movies, books, music, whatever, can help, can help.
It's not unlike how Heartbreaker, like within the UK, or it got so popular. So people that typically hadn't watched any queer media whatsoever, being from a very heteronormative society or whatever, becoming familiar with not stereotyped queer characters of various stripes.
It's like, these are just people,
and just humanizing them. And it's always representation matters, but it does. Like, that is why it matters, because it humanizes people, taking the stereotypes away from things, taking the you might still have tropes, quote unquote. Tropes are not bad. They're storytelling tools, essentially, but shows that humanize and give fictional character faces to people, real story. People do live queer lives. So, like, if you are in a very heteronormative society and a very patriarchal society and things like that, and you don't have any peers around you that are necessarily queer or anything, but seeing that through a fictional story that humanizes them, and you can identify with them just as people, and that's how the drama that you're discussing, it is very important. And so, yeah, it's ideologically necessary. Like, you see what they were trying to do with the story there.
Yeah. It's like, because there's like a difference between like an ideological positioning and propaganda. Yeah. And so this is an ideological positioning that I think is necessary for the world that needs to exist in the world. It's, it's like I always say, like, I watch dramas from all over the world, and I watch movies from all over the world. And the more that you watch from like different cultures and different communities, the more you really realize how similar everyone is. Because at the core, there's like a commonality to the human existence, that the more you open yourself up to other people and other communities and other cultures and everything, that you realize that it's actually there's not as much of a divide between people as some people would like you to believe. You know what I mean? Like white supremacists want you to believe that there's a huge divide between people of different races. There isn't. And, certain religions want you to believe there's such a divide between different religions. There's not.
Essentially, watching stories of the quote unquote other to yourself helps you humanize them and realize that.
And also realize they're not. There is no other.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
At the end of the day, like, it's, we are different, but not in such a way as to make us unrelatable to each other, unknowable to each other. Like, it's not complicated, and it's not difficult to empathize with a trans character, like a trans person, even if you don't understand the hardship of growing up feeling as though you're in the wrong body, and it's not outside of the realm of possibility to put yourself in other people's positions and empathize and understand them. And I feel like a lot of the problems that exist in this world are due to this sort of nonsense where people refuse to acknowledge commonalities with other people and then assume incorrectly that they are the default and the superior to everyone else. And so these shows are very important to me.
I think also opening up to whenever you watch movies or dramas or stories from other, people different from yourselves,
communities,
and learning what their struggles and what those inequalities and things are is very important too. So it's not simply like, oh, they're just like me in a lot of ways, but then also, oh, but they have to put up with all this stuff that I don't have to put up with, and so learning about the
or other stuff that maybe you don't realize that is actually also a problem that you just haven't known before. So
my son and I used to listen to it's called Stoop Kids. It's a podcast where this Black content creator, she tells these stories, and they're for kids. They're kids' stories, but they're about Black kids. And we're listening to this story, and it's about a little Black girl who her family moves into the suburbs. And it's summer, and she meets these new kids in the neighborhood, and they go for a swim. And she keeps talking about how she can't really go for a swim. She just sits on the edge and everything. And she keeps talking about how her mom will be mad because she had her hair done that morning, and so she can't go for a swim. And my son stopped it, and he goes, Mom, is there something about Black girls' hair that I should know that I don't know, right? And I was like,
oh, child.
Yeah, baby, there is, right? Like, I mean, how would he know? He doesn't know that different people have, he just washes his hair and walks away, right? Like,
yeah.
So I was like, yeah, actually. And, and so then having stories like that open you to conversation, right? It let's Google some things. Let's talk about some things. So it's important. It's important to have these different stories, because maybe all you ever saw was the story that got spun on the media or whatever. And now you're like, wait a minute, maybe there was a second side to that story, and I'm seeing a glimpse of that now. So,
because if you're in an insular community, you just don't know. And I feel like I was pretty lucky in my upbringing in that I lived all over the world. And so it's sort of impossible to remain in an insular community when you've lived on like 4 different continents. It's, it's a little different. So I was always very, I would encounter, like when I moved back to Canada in like late elementary school, I would be very confused by people who didn't, like so my sister Shanta we lived in Thailand, and when she started elementary school, this was before I was born, she was in Canada, in rural Canada. My sister is Nicaraguan. And so they had like in kindergarten, like this assignment, like draw a house. And so the houses that she had been most familiar with, because they had just moved back to Canada, were houses in rural Thailand, which are all on hills on stilts because of flooding. So you have to have the houses on stilts so that when the floodwater comes through, your house doesn't get washed away. And so she drew that house that what she was familiar with, was because she didn't live in Canada, she lived in Thailand for up until this point. And this is terrible. This is a terrible story. And her teacher saw it. Her teacher, this white lady from middle of nowhere Canada, no knowledge of anything, says, "Are you stupid? That's not what houses look like." And then my mom had to go in and be like, first off, don't call children stupid. And secondly, up until about 2 months ago, that is what houses looked like for us. That's what our house looked like until 2 months ago. So no, we're not. No, absolutely not. The little kid I babysit, her mom got her a book about houses that have like all sorts of different houses from around the world, and like well, what houses look like. And I just think like stuff like that is so nice for kids. And just sort of this knowledge of different than the reality that you might live in. But even within these differences, there are lots of common ground that can be found. Because at the end of the house, yeah, some houses might be on stilts, some houses might be underground, but y'all sleep in them.
Yeah.
Y'all eat dinner there.
Well,
so
that's why I think as adults to continue learning those things, essentially, like the way to do that is to expose yourself to media from other cultures, like and other communities, like disabled communities and queer communities, like all these things, in order to people do somewhat live differently, but we're also very similar. So maybe
So all this to say that DNA Says Love You on Viki and Aichi is top notch, and you should watch it because it's absolutely incredible. And it's very moving, very well acted, and I believe it is an important piece of media to exist.
And how many episodes? Like, is it pretty long, or is
it's 12? It's 12 episodes. They're about like 45 to an hour, so like a good length little show. There's nothing ridiculous in it. Like, it's not like nothing's played up for laughs. Like, nothing's, these characters aren't parodies. These characters are real people.
Cool.
Living real, like, I say in air quotes, like, these are characters that these people could exist. Realistic. Yeah, thank you. Realistic people. So my rating was 9 out of 10. I thought it was, which is a pretty high rating for old Natalia. It's really good. I really enjoyed it, and I think everyone should check it out.
Cool.
So Amanda, what is your show?
Well, I'm not sure how. I don't know. I'm gonna throw it back to the beginning of the year. It's like one of the first dramas that I watched for the year. And what I've noticed is when I do see people talk about it, a lot of what I've seen people talk about it is, oh, it looked too cheesy, so I never started it. How was it? Is the comment that I see from a lot of people. So the drama is Ghost Doctor. It's a Korean drama. It starred Rain and Kim Bum. And it's a delight. And Yui is also in there as a main character. Basically, Kim Bum is a med student who's come to do his like residency at this hospital that his family owns. And Rain is like the star super surgeon. And he gets in a car accident and goes into a coma. This is like the first episode. This is what and it's the premise of the entire show. So I'm not like spoiling things for you folks. It's called Ghost Doctor for a reason.
There's a doctor. He's a ghost.
Is he a coma ghost? Is that what we're...
He is a coma ghost. So the thing is, he is a coma ghost. Kim Bum, he is a student who he went away to the States to go to school, partially because as a child, it was discovered that he could see ghosts. And he went away to America to like hopefully get his like brain screwed on straits. You could send him away.
Because I guess over here we don't have ghosts to see. Was that the premise?
I think the no, but no psychiatry in Korea. So fair.
It is a new thing. So
we'll send you away so that nobody here can know our secret shame that you are crazy, right? So that's more the So he's come back and he tries really hard not to see ghosts. But it becomes very clear that he can because Rain is walking around while they do rounds and stuff, being his normal dick self. And Kim Bum keeps looking him in the eyes and going, boy, if I was a terrible doctor, I would say this, but I'm not. So I'll say this instead. And Rain's like, so it's hilarious. Like, the show is very, very funny, but it's also very touching.
Mm.
It centers largely around, like, Rain's, like, BFFs in this are 3 coma patients that are long-term coma patients that he has as a doctor. They're in his ward, and he's basically written them off as lost causes before this happens. And so now they're the only people he can talk to or hang out with. And they're like, okay, cool. And so he relearns how to be a good person as well as being a good surgeon. You know, like, his time as a coma ghost is teaching him how to be a person, which is kind of cool. And part of what
did you say it was 3 coma ghost BFFs? So
Yeah.
Christmas
Yeah, so
past
there's-
and present and future, is that what happens?
kind of,
Just saying.
There's an aspect there, so it's really interesting. There's a lot of really, like, a lot of really good stories that go on. Of course, there's intrigue and stuff, because perhaps the accident that put him in a coma was not really an accident. Also, the reason why he became a terrible person, he used to be a really good person, and he became a terrible person after the woman he loved left him, and for no reason. And that would be Yui's character. No apparent reason, she just left. And he thinks she left him because, like, for money and to be rich and famous, and he was too poor or whatever. So he has done everything in life to, like, become rich in order to kind of stick it to her. Like, you gave me up because I was poor, but now I'm rich, right? And she's been off in the States becoming also a fantastic, I think she's a brain surgeon. So he's a heart surgeon, she's a brain surgeon. She comes back for a reason. Her father is, like, the owner of the hospital, and he's currently sick in the hospital. So she's come back to, see him and be with him. Hopefully see if she can do anything, because she's like this super, surgeon with a different training than some of the other doctors might have because of her time in the States. And, butts heads before Rain's in a coma, butts heads with him a little bit, because he's like, no, we should do this. And she's like, no, you should be doing this. And, and then she stays on once Rain is in a coma, because she feels she owes it to him. She knows she left in a bad way. She wants to look after her dad, but also she wants to look after Rain while he's in a coma, and, like, do whatever she can to help him. So there's regret and there's romance, and but it's not super heavy on the romance either. Like, Kim Bum's character has a sort of romance with another doctor who's in the ER that he went to school with and stuff, and they're really, really cute together. Their friendship is adorable. It's just really, really good. Very, very classic K-drama. So, like, if you are somebody who is new to K-dramas, like maybe just popped in and, like, since Crash Landing on You or something like that, and you hear a lot about these classic K-dramas and how things have changed, but sometimes we don't want to recommend the classic ones because some of the things that have changed for the better.
Times have moved a little more.
Yeah, so this drama has all those classic K-drama tropes and feels and vibes to it. It feels very much like a 2016 K-drama that you would watch, except for nothing about it made me go, oh, really? Did we have to do that right now? Like, there was none of that cringe that sometimes pops up in some of those older dramas, like the wrist grabbing or the casual misogyny that you're like, ugh. Like, it doesn't. There's misogyny, but it's obvious and overt and, like,
supposed to be there as a part of the plot,
dealt with.
Yeah,
because she's a lady surgeon, right? And so, like, oh, she can't.
How
be the
dare
best.
she be a lady surgeon?
There's nonsense like that you see, but that's, like, normal, right? Like, that's something that should be dealt with. They're dealing with things that are problems. They're not casually having problems and pretending they're not problems, you know? So, yeah, I just think it was really fun, really, really good. There was nothing about it that I'm thinking about now going, oh, except for this, like nothing like that. I enjoyed it start to finish. It, highly
How
recommend.
was the corniness level, since
So,
that's what evidently people ask quite often?
It's there. I mean, it's not there. You're talking about a ghost that basically the premise here is that Kim Bum's character becomes a star surgeon because Rain can possess his body. Because he's a medium, he can be possessed. And so he possesses him in order to do surgeries. So there are some really goofy moments where the two of them, you know, fight over the body and, you know, things like that, like, or various things like that. So there is some silliness, but not to the level where you're like, okay, this feels like a tone switch, or like it feels out of place or weird for the rest of the drama. It's a comedy, like it's got a comedy vibe to it. It doesn't feel, like I said, it doesn't feel like with the intrigue that's going on, like you're going like super dark serial killer to like super hilarious sitcom. Like it doesn't flip back and forth. It's a very cohesive story, and it gets the job done. And yeah, I remember thinking while I was watching it, this is such a K-drama. Like it's the most K-drama to K-drama that I've, you know, like this year kind of thing. It just has all those classic K-drama vibes to it without the icky classic K-drama vibes. So, you know, I have no problem recommending it to basically anybody. Like, it might not be your thing. Maybe you're not into a comedy. Maybe you hate medical dramas. I don't know. Maybe you don't like ghost stories. But it's good. I laughed. I didn't really cry. It didn't quite get me there, but it had good stories, great characters, and just good storytelling.
And it's over on Viki.
Yeah. So it's pretty easily accessible should you wish to find it. How about you, Sky?
So my pick, it was from, I was just rechecking when this aired. January 2022. So I'm going way back to the very beginning. Reset is a C drama, and you can find it on Viki. And it is a time travel Groundhog's Day-esque. It's a time travel loop situation. And for some people that's like automatic turn off. So like if you just don't like sci-fi in any respect, or if you just always hate time travel anything, yeah, don't pick it up. But I like those types of things, so like it was my jam. Essentially it follows a girl and a guy who do not know each other, strangers. They end up on a bus for different reasons, and ultimately the bus explodes from a bomb. Well, it's like it also gets impact, so like it kind of looks like there was an intentional accident, but then it also exploded so much that it was obvious there was a bomb too. But then that's where the time loop starts, but only for them. Obviously, it's not the entire everybody on the bus. And so it's very, people call it a thriller, so it has a lot of aspects of that. And so it's very puzzly. And there were a lot of times I was holding my breath. Like I really, because you're trying to figure it out with them. They're trying to figure out who has the bomb. Like, because they keep on trying to prevent the accident, essentially, every time they wake up.
Yeah.
And they only have like a few minutes before everything happens again. They have to, so they pretty much end up going person by person slowly in the bus to like kind of figure out what their deal is. what's this person, because everyone's kind of looks suspicious. This person's wearing this type of hoodie with this type of a backpack. This person looks super sketchy. This person argued with that person. So like there's all these, essentially everyone looks suspicious when you look at them a certain way. But so aside from the thriller aspect being really compelling, like I watched it very, very quickly. It was also a very humanizing drama. Like I really enjoyed. So like I said, everyone looks suspicious. So as they go person by person trying to problem solve this issue, all of a sudden this old lady who looks like super mean or whatever, you eventually figure out her story, right? And so then the show will back up enough to show, before this lady got on the bus, this is what she went through, kind of, and this is what she's dealing with in that moment.
Oh, that's
or
fun.
This is what this person has gone through. And so, that's a farmer that's struggling, but you can't tell that because he looks this way. So I mean, it's a very humanizing drama, and some of it's funny. Like they realize their preconceptions of people is often so off base that you can never know someone until you actually know them. And also an aspect of it is as they try to problem solve all this, and there's times that they try to get help from the other people on the bus, but how do you get help in a few moments time and not sound crazy, but also that struggle of, if you express that you need help, are people really going to help you? How do you convince somebody to help you? So like there's a lot of, I'm not saying it's like this super deep thriller, but it really does humanize like people's interactions, like especially in a public space like public transit. And I just really appreciated how they went person by person within the bus and kind of told those stories. It was really, really fascinating. And their time kind of kept shifting. The loop kind of kept changing. Like it kind of kept lengthening a bit. Like you could tell that they were kind of getting closer to their goal, but like they couldn't quite get there. There's a point that they keep on getting questioned by the police at this juncture. And so it does paint the police in a very kind light, maybe overly kind. Yay, see drama. That's what we sometimes do. So I mean, I'm not gonna like sugarcoat the fact that is a thing. They do make a really like personable like police chief type dude who no nonsense, but once you convince him that you're for realsies, eventually he will go to bat for you. It's like, that's probably not really a thing.
That's not accurate. Yeah,
but I mean. So to me, it married two things that I just really, really enjoy. The thriller aspect, it really had a lot of turns in it that I did not foresee. Other things, it's like, oh, of course that was the thing. But like there was one part, they kind of showcased a part, and I don't know if this really exists in China. Of course I don't. But like supposedly this person kind of lived in an apartment. It's kind of like the cosplay section of this like city, so it's like it's where all the like gamers and stuff would go, and so you just walk down the street and like everyone's in cosplay, so like that was interesting to see. Or just a lot of the struggle. I mean, is this realistic? No, it's a time loop. It's a time loop drama.
This doesn't happen.
But the way they did visit some of the stories of the people on the bus and stuff, and then eventually work through everything was really, really cool in my opinion. I will say, like, I thought for sure I had tweeted about this drama at the very least. I did not. I could not. So, like, when I say people haven't been talking about it, I mean myself. I obviously...
It was me. I'm people.
I know that I discussed it when we were doing What We're Watching back in the day, of course, but yeah, I really wanted to showcase it because, like, if you're down for C-dramas and like time travel stuff, I'm a sucker for that. I think C-dramas have a pretty light touch with it. Are there probably like loopholes for like the science of this show? Yes, the science is not it is not the focus of what's going on here. But yeah, like I just really, I'm trying to see the lead actor fella. He's Bai Jingting. He was in You Are My Hero, which is the C-drama where year prior he was like a military person, and then the lead girl was a doctor, and I was way into that drama last year. So that's kind of what first made me pay attention to this drama. But like, he did a really good job. Like, it was kind of funny because the role I had seen him in prior was like SWAT team level military, hyper masculine, and then he's like, in this drama, his character is very computer nerd type and can't do much physical, like as far as can't like overpower someone all that well, because that's the type of thing they need to be doing. But yeah, it was puzzly and twisty, and I was really surprised by, because I was like, how are they going to carry this through how many episodes they have? Because it's a 15 episode drama that's time loop. Like, that is a lot of episodes to have things to like be interesting in, and it
like,
never dragged for me.
How are you gonna?
I really, really enjoyed it.
That's good.
That's really cool. So I like that.
Like, and like I said, I mean, I don't think I had like sit down and binge it in one day thing, but whenever I would sit down, I would watch like a chunk of it, because I'd be like, what happens next? What happens next? How do they fix it? Because it would be they'd fix it a little. It wouldn't be, it's not like, oh, we found the one key and solved the problem. It was always, and sometimes you'd be like, oh, that's got to fix it. Nope. That like made it worse. Like sometimes that was the wrong thing to do. But yeah, the humanity of it really shocked me, because I honestly have not seen a sci-fi like C-drama, honestly even K-drama, that like humanizes so many different backgrounds of characters. When honestly they didn't have to. It still would have been an interesting show, but they spent the time humanizing a lot of those background characters, and that's always something that really gets my attention too. So that's a big reason why I recommend it as well. But again, if you automatically don't like time loops or something, don't even start it. Like that is the crux of the show. It is the premise. It is a time loop.
I saw a couple people talking about it on Twitter, but like, the people who have watched it, I've never seen anybody say anything bad. Like, the people who were into it were super into it.
I think a part of the reason why I didn't talk about it on Twitter, because I remember wanting to talk about it, and that's why I thought I had. But you do not want to spoil this show. I literally cannot tell you now how they fixed it. Like, it's so twisty and stuff. I can't freaking remember.
You're like, I couldn't tell you.
I cannot spoil it. You. I don't remember. But at the time, like when you're in the middle of it, you sometimes want to talk to somebody about whatever twist, right? But like, you can't go on Twitter and go, hey, someone talk to me about this twist that happened. Like, you can't do that.
Give me the twist.
Like,
give me the twist.
Like, not really.
That's when you need like a group chat that's all watching the show at the same time, so that you have someone to be like, holy shit, did you see what happened this week? Like, fuck.
Had that, like, my book club, 3 of us read this one book like way earlier than a bunch of other people, and I'm getting to and I'm like, oh my god, and they're like, I know, and then we like started a group chat, just the 3 of us, so we could do it without spoiling things for the people who hadn't read it yet, because you're like, it's a big deal, right? Like the surprise, the shocker is a shocker, and you don't want to ruin that for other people. You want them to enjoy that.
Yeah, I was in a group chat for Alchemy of Souls, and we were, like, every week would be like, oh shit, did you see what happened this week?
For Reset, some of the twists aren't even like necessarily a big plot twist either. Quite often it would be, this preconception of this person, that's how it was wrong. Like this, sometimes it'd even be a small thing. Like, you were assuming this about them, and it's like, that's not right at all.
But guess what? That was a poor assumption.
Well, and I guess I have a weakness for shows that humanize people, yes, but also kind of like showcase the fact that we all have a weakness in judging people. Like we need to be very cognizant of that. And sometimes you think, oh, I'm very aware and I can be empathetic and all these things. You still make assumptions about people, especially if you're in like an emergency situation or something like the characters in this drama. You start really making a lot of assumptions based on appearances or actions or expressions on people's faces. Because of course you do. What else are you going to go off of? These people are strangers, right?
Right.
But really, they could just be having a bad day. Like, they're not necessarily carrying a bomb. Like, that's, you know.
It could just be anything, really.
I'm
like
reading a murder mystery right now, and the investigators halfway through find out that one of the people that they're hanging out with was in prison for manslaughter. So they're like, well, obviously he's the murderer. And you're like,
no, okay, that's not.
And then when they talk to him about it, he's like, here's what happened, and here's what, you know, and you're like, oh, okay, right? Like, yeah, you can't just assume that because you know one thing about a person's past, that means
so
you
that
know
comes
the person.
into play.
Or,
like, even in this drama, my memory might be fuzzy, but I feel like it was like, oh, of course, this person had been to prison before, so of course they're the one that did. You know, like all this, like,
and you're like,
no, it doesn't work like that. Like, just because, you know. So, I mean, I had seen the critique of the show that it is, you know, builds up cops being good fellas. So I will say that's, I suppose, the caveat. But in my opinion, though they had to ultimately rely on some aspects of that, it's not like that was the, you know, the main two characters weren't cops or anything. So you're mostly spending time getting to know these main two characters. But yeah, I really appreciated it. There was a lot of I wouldn't say really human nature exploration. It was just more just realizing how many assumptions we have of each other. But also there was a little bit of if you ask a certain way, you might be able to get help from people, kind of. Like, how do you do that? How do you plead to get help really quickly from people? Yeah. Also, I like shows sometimes that it's like, here's an emergency situation, because honestly, that's the type of stuff I think about. I've been in a bomb scare before. I've dealt with some stuff. So, you know, my husband's an ICU nurse. Like, I think in these realms a fair bit. So I also kind of like that aspect of thought experiment, essentially, of this time loop drama. But I really do enjoy it. Like I said, it's on Viki. It's some of the episodes are only like 45-ish minutes. Some of them are kind of, you know, a little bit closer to an hour. But it looks like, for some reason, my drama list says that it aired only like for a couple of weeks. I wonder if that's I don't know if that's a typo. I think it might be.
Well, but Chinese dramas generally do like 4 episodes a week, right? So if it's only, you know, 8 or 12 episodes, then
so it's a 15 episode drama, and it says it was January 11th through January 25th. It just sounded quick to me for that many episodes. So it makes me wonder, like, I don't know how it was aired, like, on Chinese television or whatever. But I really, really do recommend it if you're into that type of thing. I know that's not for everybody, but yeah, give it a shot if that's something that you might like.
Cool. So anyway, thank you for listening to this new segment that we're doing. Drama gems. We're still workshopping. Like, if you have any, if you have any suggestions for what this episode style, this episode segment, episode category could be called. I don't know what the word I'm looking for here is. You can go to our suggestions channel on our Discord. Our Discord is free to the world. You don't have to be a patron or anything. You can just come join the Discord, and you can leave your suggestions for what we should actually call this segment, or if you like drama gems, let us know.
Let us know.
And thank you for listening. If you want to listen to all the other episodes we've done, you can go to our website, certifiednewness.com, where we have links and time codes to everything we talk about. But all of our stuff is also wherever, podcasts go, and on YouTube. You should definitely go like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we also do fun live streams over there. We have a good time. We have such a good time just making content for y'all. If you want to support this podcast, you can go to patreon.com/certified newness, become a member of the Certified Found Family. That's our found family on the web, and they rock. And also, we had a second pick of our second option for this Drama Gems episode that's only available for patrons over on Patreon. So if you want to know what second drama from 2022 we thought was a winner, there will be a second mini episode for patrons only. Anyway, thank you for hanging out with us and listening to this podcast. And as always, wash your hands, wear a mask, and keep enjoying Asian entertainment. Goodbye.
Bye.